Before we begin, this story involves the deaths of infants on a large scale, driven by corporate negligence. The details are systemic, not graphic, but if that's something you need to step away from, we understand. Take care of yourself first. Lagos, Nigeria, 1971. A woman in a crisp white uniform walks into a maternity ward. She smiles. She holds a tin of powdered formula with a picture of a healthy baby on the label. The new mothers assume she's a nurse. She's not. She works for Nestlé. And the free samples she's handing out will, in many cases, be the last thing standing between these infants and starvation. Because by the time the samples run out, the mothers won't be able to breastfeed anymore. You're listening to The Unlit Room. Every story in here actually happened. That's the part that should scare you. New stories every day, Monday through Saturday. Today, how the world's largest food company turned maternity wards into sales floors. And the babies paid the price. The 1960s, Nestlé is already the biggest food company on the planet. And across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, birth rates are climbing. Nestlé sees a market. Not in wealthy countries where doctors can monitor infant nutrition and clean water flows from every tap, but in rural villages and urban slums where neither of those things is true. The company's strategy is elegant and devastating. It hires local women, puts them in white uniforms, and sends them into hospitals. They're called milk nurses. They visit maternity wards. They visit new mothers at home. They carry clipboards and speak with authority about infant nutrition. They look exactly like medical professionals, because that's the point. The milk nurses hand out free tins of powdered formula. Enough for about a week. They explain how to mix it, how to feed the baby. They're warm, they're helpful. And by the time they leave, many mothers have started bottle feeding. Here's the thing about breastfeeding. It's a use it or lose it system. When a mother stops nursing, her milk supply drops. Within days, it can dry up entirely. The free samples last just long enough for that to happen. Micro cliffhanger 1. But there was a reason the samples were free. Not generosity, dependency. Because once a mother's milk is gone, she has exactly one option left. And it costs money she doesn't have. In rural Nigeria in the early 70s, a tin of Nestlé infant formula could cost 30 to 50% of a family's income. That's not a grocery item. That's rent. So mothers do what anyone would do. They stretch it. They dilute the formula, half the recommended powder, twice the water. Sometimes a quarter of the recommended amount. The baby is getting calories, but barely. Not enough protein, not enough nutrients, just enough to feel full while slowly starving. And the water itself is the second problem. In communities without running water, mothers mix formula with whatever's available. River water, well water, water carried in containers that can't be sterilized because there's no fuel to boil it and no refrigeration to store it. The result is a cycle that kills with brutal efficiency. Contaminated water causes diarrhea. Diarrhea causes dehydration. A malnourished infant can't fight either one. UNICEF data from this period shows that formula-fed infants in these conditions are 6 to 25 times more likely to die of diarrheal disease than breastfed infants. 6 to 25 times. __break, _D, 09, F3, 956, __. And this isn't happening in one hospital or one village. It's happening across continents, millions of mothers, millions of infants. Micro cliffhanger 2. The first person to put the full picture together wasn't a doctor or a government official. He was a British charity worker. And when he published what he found, Nestlé's response wasn't to recall its product. It was to call its lawyers. Mike Muller worked for War on Want, a small anti-poverty charity based in London. The kind of organization that operated on a shoestring and published pamphlets that maybe a few thousand people would read. In 1974, he wrote one called The Baby Killer. It was 28 pages. It laid out the entire system, the milk nurses, the free samples, the dependency trap, the death toll. It was careful, sourced, and devastating. Then a Swiss activist group got hold of it. The Swiss Third World Action Group translated it into German, but they changed the title. Their version wasn't called The Baby Killer. It was called Nestlé Kills Babies. Nestlé, headquartered in Switzerland, did not take this well. The company filed a criminal libel suit in Bern. The message was clear: challenge us and we'll bury you in court. The trial lasted 2 years, and Nestlé won. Technically, the judge ruled that the title Nestlé Kills Babies was too broad to be protected as fair comment. The activists were found guilty of libel, but then the judge did something Nestlé hadn't planned for. In his ruling, he told Nestlé directly that it needed to, his words, fundamentally rethink its marketing practices in the developing world. The judge who ruled in Nestlé's favor publicly condemned the company's behavior. The libel suit was supposed to silence criticism. Instead, it put the story on front pages around the world. Micro cliffhanger 3. By 1977, a boycott was spreading across the United States. By 1981, the entire world would vote on whether to stop companies like Nestlé from marketing formula in developing countries. When the votes were counted, only one country said no. On July 4, 1977, America's Independence Day, a coalition called In Fact launched a nationwide boycott of Nestlé products from Minneapolis. It spread to Europe, to Australia, to Canada. Churches, universities, and labor unions signed on. It became one of the largest consumer boycotts in history. The pressure worked, slowly. The World Health Organization began drafting an international code to regulate how formula could be marketed in developing countries. In 1981, the WHO put it to a vote. 118 member nations. The code would restrict advertising, ban free samples in hospitals, and prohibit the use of health workers for commercial promotion. The vote was 118 to 1. The sole dissenting vote came from the United States. Under heavy lobbying from the formula industry, the Reagan administration voted no, the only nation on Earth to oppose an international code designed to protect infant lives. It reframes the entire story. This wasn't just one company behaving badly. This was an industry with enough political leverage to get the most powerful government in the world to stand alone against 117 countries on a measure to stop babies from dying. _BREAK_580 DCC99 __. In 1984, Nestlé finally agreed to comply with the WHO code. The boycott was suspended. 4 years later, it was relaunched. Monitoring groups found continued violations, formula promotion in hospitals, free samples still distributed, marketing materials still targeting new mothers in the developing world. As recently as 2007, Save the Children and IB Fan reported that aggressive formula promotion was still contributing to infant mortality in developing countries. The boycott is still active today. There's a word for what the milk nurses did. They wore the uniform of care, the white coat, the clipboard, the gentle authority of someone who knows what's best for your baby. They walked into the most vulnerable moment of a new mother's life and used it to create a customer. Trust is the thing that makes medicine work. It's why you listen to a nurse, why you follow a doctor's instructions, why you give your child something a professional in a white uniform tells you is good for them. When a corporation hijacks that trust, dresses commerce in the clothing of care, it doesn't just sell a product. It poisons the relationship between patients and the people who are supposed to help them. The infants who died weren't victims of contaminated formula. The powder in those tins was fine. They were victims of a system designed to create dependency in places where dependency meant death, and the system worked exactly as intended. If this one kept you up tonight, good. New stories every day, Monday through Saturday. Subscribe so the next one finds you too. Follow the Unlit Room wherever you listen. Tell a friend who can't sleep. Full story on the main channel. Follow if you're wide awake. That was the Unlit Room. See you in the dark.